I think I'd like to summarize some of the scientific findings from our big National Bureau for Economic Research study. This was funded by $1 million from the Rockefeller Foundation, the Russell Sage Foundation, and the Foundation for Enterprise Development helped fund the writing of the book, which is coming out soon. My co-author, the leading economist in the country on employee ownership, Doug Cruz, is in the audience here, along with Richard Freeman of Harvard. Well, what did we find? What's some of the scientific takeaways? We had 40,000 employee surveys, 14 companies, many of the signature companies in Silicon Valley, by the way, participate. First of all, what we found is that employee ownership occurs, shared capitalism occurs in combinations. Many companies use combinations of broad-based stock options, employee stock ownership, profit sharing, gain sharing together. Oftentimes, we think they're trying to balance some short-term and long-term incentives. The second thing that we find is that, oddly enough, if you have provided shared capitalism incentives to employees and you closely supervise them, it's like pouring Drano on the performance effects. Employees, if you give them an incentive and then say, we're going to watch you with a high management to employee ratio, do not respond well to that. In fact, one of the things that you're hoping for is that you can have less policing of employees and more coaching of employees with your management team. And that leads to a very important takeaway, which the economists contributed importantly to this result, is, as we know, the common objection to this stuff is that you're going to get shirkers. So I'm the shirker, and these guys work hard, and I share in the reward. Well, what we found, in fact, was that the more shared capitalism that you have, the more the employees engage in anti-shirking behavior, pressuring the shirker, reporting the shirker to the supervisor, working with the shirker. And that if you combine these shared capitalism incentives with high-performance work practices like better selection, training and development of employees and employee involvement teams and such, it increases the anti-shirker effect. So that's one important thing in explaining the increased productivity. You have to supervise them less, and they supervise each other more and train each other more on the job. Another important takeaway, and this is, I think, important in the sort of the later stages of companies, is it's important to pay people their fixed wage at or above the market rate. If employees think that you're paying them 30% less and then the rest in stock options, it's an unacceptable risk situation. Maybe at the beginning of a startup. At the beginning of a startup, it's the common approach.
That's called sweat equity.
But your Microsofts, your Ciscos, and such have moved away from that. And lastly, I would say that that we find that as we said, that the strongest effects are not either of these practices alone or all of them together. It's when you combine the practices with the support of corporate culture. And what are the elements in that basket? The elements in that basket are high-performance work practices, intensive training of employees, employee involvement teams, self-directed work teams, job security, and paying at or above the market, and also not close supervision. That's the optimal basket. The last thing I want to say is we did probably the largest study ever done on innovation climate and innovation behavior by employees, a particular interest to those of you working, and I know many of you are, in tech companies. And we found the same kind of thing, that when it's the combination of shared capitalism plus this supportive corporate culture that creates a very strong innovative climate and a willingness to innovate, meaning spend time, go to meetings, spend extra time by employees on the company. So we feel that the National Bureau of Economic Research project has clarified some of the conditions under which this works, and we'll talk more about it later. It's important to remember that there is a struggle for ideas going on in the minds of entrepreneurs, okay? 50% of the employees or more in the computer services sector have cash profit sharing, broad-based stock options, and employee stock ownership. What was in the minds of the other founders and entrepreneurs of the other companies who decided not to do this? So two things. There's variation out there, but this has spread broadly enough in technology industries that it's not just some minor phenomenon. It's actually quite a major phenomenon in tech in tech sectors. But there are differences. I recently interviewed Arthur Rock about his experience with employee ownership and shared capitalism at Intel, and many of you know the story that when some of the founders of Intel came to work with Shockley, they left Shockley over differences, over corporate culture, and partly over how many people were included in incentives. And then they left the next company, Fairchild, over the same fights. And when they got to Intel, they said, we're going to do it right.